Hi everyone, Jess here at day 2 of World Aviation Festival, and I'm joined by Julie Shainock, Global Business Development Executive at Microsoft.
Hi Jess, thank you for having me today.
No problem. What role does technology play in the push for sustainability within the aviation industry?
Well, the old saying, you cannot measure what you cannot manage. Technology, and you can manage the data with technology, but we need to go beyond just more than just what carbon offsets are. So I think that's probably one of the areas that we're looking at today. The other is, as you look at sustainability and you talk to customers today, there's not one customer that we don't talk to or we don't have a conversation with that we're not talking about sustainability as well. And it's one thing just to maybe electrify a fleet, but then you have to connect everything as well so that you are measuring and managing all the different data as we start to move forward. So I think it's a much more complicated process in the world today. And then I also think that the airline CEOs were just talking about sustainability, and I think from a sustainability aspect and SAF, that's another area that we look at as we start to move forward. And so Microsoft is working on where we have a book and plane pilot that we're doing with an airline, with RSB, with SABA. So I think all of this is going to play a bigger and bigger role as we start to move forward. And the other piece of this is we know we don't have enough SAF, but I think as we move into years in the future, you'll start to see SAF being produced more in local regions and environments, and that can only help us as we start to move forward.
You have previously stated that the travel industry has historically been behind in the cloud journey. Is this still the case, and what role is Microsoft playing in the industry shift towards cloud optimization?
I would tell you that today, I look at it as more of an adoption challenge. And even if you look at data today with companies is more in what we call like a walled garden. Some people may be a little more advanced, but what you really want to get to is from that walled garden where everything's completely internal into this what we call more of a public park, and it's almost like an ecosystem of ecosystems where the partners within that ecosystem all have access to the data that they need in order to provide efficiency and insights as you start to move forward. So I do think that it's more of an adoption challenge today, and we're starting to see how companies, airlines, airports, et cetera, are starting to deal with some of those challenges around cloud adoption. And I think the other piece is, as you look at coming out of the pandemic, or even when we went into the pandemic, if airlines were actually on the cloud, they would have had a lot of capability to take advantage of scaling up and scaling down much more efficiently. So I think everyone's learned their lesson there, and they're moving as quickly as they can to cloud.
Yeah, I think the pandemic was definitely a steep learning curve.
It was.
For everyone.
For everyone, and even technology companies as well. Teams was such a huge part of that from a Microsoft perspective.
And definitely it remains a huge part of it.
It does.
Becomes a core operator for those companies.
Yeah, that's right. And I think open systems is another, looking at the technology at an open systems level is also a huge advantage for airlines and many other companies to take advantage of.
We understand that collaboration is key for industry growth, but what partnership within the aviation verticals have you seen be particularly beneficial to the industry?
So I do think that, technology is, far outpacing adoption that we have out there today. And I think some of the partnerships that we certainly have a strategic partnership with Amadeus, and we are working with them to, reimagine travel as we start to move forward. I also think that, just the area as how we're working with airlines and teams. You see a number of airlines today where they've got, advanced apps or super apps that they have out there, but bringing that information together around tasks is really an important thing. And anything we can do to help the airlines in a turn environment is also, critical. And we work with many, many airlines around the globe in this environment. just providing the collaboration and communication capabilities, integrating bots, adaptive cards, and then even going so far as, to drive all the different efficiencies that they would need in a turn time so they can start achieving, significant savings as it relates to turns. So.
What challenges can we expect to see regarding technology and aviation in the coming years, and how can these be overcome?
I think that, in aviation, I think one of the biggest things that we need to see is, well, first of all, I think data, everyone talks about it as the new oil, et cetera. Data is a fundamental element that we have to have, and, we've got to be able to draw the insights from the data. So that's one aspect of things. But the other thing we have to do is we have to look at, the legacy systems that we still have in place, even legacy people that we still have in place. We've got to be able to, drive efficiencies there. The other thing I see is, as you look across a lot of other industries, I think that consumers, guests, passengers could get very frustrated with the aviation industry in that it's not moving as rapidly, and it's not taking advantage of technology as it can. I flew into Schiphol yesterday morning, and we got moved into a holding area because the lines were so long, just coming through, customs and border, with your passports. So I just think there's so many different efficiencies that can be gained where you have a lot of collaboration taking place. So airports, airlines need to collaborate better together. You've got new technologies, location-based services, wayfinding, grab and go technology, robotics. You've got a lot of different things out there that can help as we start to move forward. And we have to, change is happening so fast, and we have to adapt that change very quickly so that we have a frictionless, contactless journey for the guests and passengers that they're moving through, the aviation systems.
I think that's a really important point, what you were saying about the communication between the airport and the airline, I think. And that definitely is an area that we're seeing technology sort of coming to bridge the gap with.
Well, and the other thing, I came in yesterday, so you had the EU self-service machines. They were practically empty. There was no one there, and the lines were very long. Nexus, EU, and then you have all other passports. And I recognize what everyone's saying because we have labor challenges in the U.S. as well. But the airlines can communicate to the airports about how many non-EU passengers they have, and that may help them at least at this level with, as far as getting the right number of people to handle the right number of passengers. And then that next step, and the airline CEOs were talking about this as well. Collaboration and cooperation going on between the airlines and the governments. So you've got the EU here, and we've got, global entry, there's Nexus, there's all these different things, and how can we pull this together to provide economies of scale for the travelers in the marketplace? So I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think it's an exciting time, but there are definite challenges, and I think technology can help address those challenges as we start to move forward.
Definitely. I guess as we're seeing travel scale back up from the pandemic as well, that was priority one, and now we're working.
That's right, and I think you had a lot of efficiencies already going on in a number of airports. So that's not it, but where you get into some of the bigger European airports, I mean, it is challenging. It's very challenging. I've been traveling. I've had my bags lost, for 4 days. So I recognize those challenges as well. And I think people hate to stand in line. So anything they can do to advance themselves. And I think also thinking about, the younger generation. The younger generation, they're into instant gratification. They love to travel. So anything we can do to provide the efficiencies to them, I think will only help the industry as we start to move forward.
Okay, fantastic. That's really interesting. Thank you, Julie.
Why do you think the World Aviation Festival is such an important event in the aviation calendar?
I think that I love the fact that we have an airline track and an airport track. I think bringing the two together is so critical, as we start to move forward. And I think these are two major aspects, within the touch points of the journey of a guest or a passenger. I think the other piece is, over time, we need to, airlines need to look beyond, just the airport. Information, you have to start sharing information, with the hospitality industry. You've got all the mobility aspects of things. So I think things are starting to change as we start to move forward. And I think probably the biggest challenge, I think the Aviation Festival, and I've been coming here for a very long time, I just think it's a great way of networking and then seeing the topics and how the two major segments are addressing things, and it also gives us the ability to bring that information together as well.
Thank you so much for joining me, Julie.
Thank you very much for having me.